Okay, we are live now. We are live, Priyamada.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Sam. This week, we'll take a reflective turn as Mr. Sam Pitroda will pay tribute to ex Prime Minister Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji. It was his birth anniversary this week. Rajiv Gandhi ji, a leader who redefined India's aspirations with his vision, compassion, and commitment to modernization. Having worked closely with Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji on transformative national missions, Mr. Sam Pitroda will share his personal stories, leadership lessons, and insights into Rajiv ji's style of governance. From empowering youth and embracing technology to strengthening democracy and decentralization, Rajiv Gandhi ji's leadership continues to inspire us all. This session is not just a remembrance, it's a moment for all of us to reflect on what true leadership means and how it shapes the destiny of a nation. Let us all join to honor the legacy of a great visionary leader, India's very own Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji. I now request Sam sir to address our audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyamvada. Thank you, Pendra. Greetings, everyone from Chicago. Today is a very special day, especially for me, because I'll have an opportunity to speak to you about a leader, Prime Minister of a country who would have been 80 this week. He became Prime Minister in 1985, exactly when he was 40-year-old. That's pretty young for a country like India, which always had prime minister in their 60s and at times in 70s. So Rajiv Gandhi became prime minister at a real young age. And I thought it would be a good idea for all of us to just review and reflect on what his leadership was all about, how it transformed him and transformed India. I'm sure different people will have their own different view. Lots of books have been written about Rajiv Gandhi. Other people who worked closely with him have given their version of what Rajiv Gandhi meant to them and the nation. They all differ in perceptions, but they all agree on fundamental values, principles, purpose. And I want to talk a little bit about his style of leadership, mainly because we started our conversation on leadership and already had a couple of sessions. So it'd be nice to tie this with his style of leadership. He really never wanted to come to politics. He got drawn into it because of family circumstances, because of sudden death, violent death of then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, his mother. And he became a product of an incident, era, and public demand. Rajiv Gandhi became custodian of the idea of India handed over from Gandhi and Nehru to Indira Gandhi to Rajiv Gandhi. He had to bring in his new team, and as a leader, he realized that this is the time to bring about generational change. It is no longer just about continuity from Indira Gandhi to next Gandhi, but it is about a new kind of leadership that India would expect from a 40-year-old. Rajiv Gandhi was a pilot. Can I just take 1 second and get a glass of water? Because I've been on video earlier for an hour just before
Sure,
this.
sir.
And let me just get a glass of water. I'm so sorry. Thanks. So Rajiv Gandhi knew that he has to create whole new team of younger people to take this country forward. He took a couple of his friends like Arun Nehru, Arun Singh. He had other friends like Suman Dubey, Vijay Dhar, and others, and tried to build a core team around him to really translate his vision. Then he had Satish Sharma, who was a pilot with him, very close friend of him. And the idea was to really work within the system, bring in new thinking, and meet people's aspirations that now we have a young prime minister and something different, something unique will happen. So I first met him. I mean, I'd met him before, but I first seriously met him in January of 85 at his home for over an hour. He and I spent time together. And at that meeting, I made my decision that I need to give up everything to come back to India because this moment in the history will never come back. Here is a young man with proper values, character, morale, energy, enthusiasm, dream, vision, committed to building an India of the future. And here is my chance to not only serve, but also to be a part of that dream. Indian system 40 years ago was basically manual. People made decisions based on files. There was no computerization. There were no telephones that you could depend on, rely on. In fact, if you went to Prime Minister's office, you saw about 8, 9 phones there because you couldn't rely on every phone to work all the time. So we used to have a hotline with about a few hundred people in the government. You could pick up that red phone and get immediately connected to a small group of numbers because you needed something dependable, reliable during emergency. So we all used to talk on that number more so than regular telephones. At that point in time, the first task was to really improve administration. So, on one hand, he had to build a team, reliable, dependable, loyal. On the other hand, he had to really build tools to modernize government. And the task was so complex. I've always said that no one is suitable for the job of the prime minister. You really grow in that job. As you get in, you begin to understand the system, people, personality, priority, perceptions. Because traditionally the system works on perk, privilege, and patronage. System does not work on performance or productivity. Who do you know? What perk you get? Do you have car with a light or you have car without light? Do you have minister's bungalow or you have an apartment? All these things in the government mattered and still matters to some extent. Okay. So the task was huge. Then we had about 650 million people, almost half the size of the population we have today. So Rajiv Gandhi's leadership was not only rooted in an incident that his mother violently got killed and he had to rise and respond to the call of the nation, but he also, because of his age, had to build new India with new team rather than continuing with all the old ways of doing things. So how do you do that? And that really excited me. And that's when I decided it's time to give up American nationality, come back and join him. And at that point in time, only thing we had was C dot to hang my hat. Though I was not head of C dot, I was not on the board, I was just a moral force. I never took any salary from the government, never took any benefit from the government, but I needed a home. So I told him, look, only thing I need is a house. And he immediately said, fine, you decide which house you need and we'll get it organized. So I went to the right people and, sort of selected a modest house that could be not for the ultimate senior minister, but, a pretty decent independent house on 44 Lodi Estate, right in front of India International Center in Delhi. And I decided to move my family there. That gave me an opportunity to be close to him and learn more about his style, his priorities, and help him in implementing some of these ideas. So then, in July of 1985, I did a very interesting document. I still have it, called India in 2011. It seems so far then that what would India be 25 years from now? That document had to be typed by me because there were no laptops. There were sort of desktops, and laptops were just coming out. I have a typed version of the document which talks about the global trends, networking, collaboration, information society of the future, and automation, and all kinds of things. And then it takes one by one multiple areas like India in information age, India in manufacturing age, India in agricultural age, and then population, education, health, science and technology, transport, uh, communication, broadcast, what should you do with television, and every little detail is spelled out in about 50 pages. So in July, I had a discussion on this document with Rajiv, and he was all excited. And he said, Sam, this is what we need to really present to the nation as our vision of 21st century. He said, you go on TV and we will articulate this. So he connected me to several people. First, the party people. I remember he sent 4 or 5 young people, Anand Sharma, Ghulam Nabi Azad, Oscar Fernandez, and few others. And then I got to meet all the young leaders like Kamal Nath and everyone, Digvijay Singhs of the world. And then he sent Karanjia, the editor of Blitz newspaper, who spent a lot of time with me and finally did a 8-page document on the vision of India. And that became really our talking point. The idea was to introduce this document during centennial celebration of the Congress Party in December. But then lots of things happened. Longowal Accord came in, and that diverted our attention, and we got sidetracked from the 21st century vision to day management, firefighting. Because in India, there is always a fire going on somewhere that needs your immediate attention. Whether it is in north or south or east or west, there is always something very important happening. So he was not only firefighting, but he also wanted to build his own version of what needs to be done. So he started introducing some discipline in government for regular review. So he'll have a review meeting, which wasn't very common in those days. People worked on files, signature, comments, and nobody called a meeting of 20, 30 people together to discuss a developmental topic. So I remember once, before I got into technology missions, he had 2 meetings, one on water and one on agriculture. So people understood that Sam Pitroda uses transparencies for presentation, and Prime Minister likes transparencies, view graphs. We didn't have PowerPoint presentations then. So general thinking in the government was that Prime Minister likes organized presentation. So these 2 secretaries gave their presentation, but before that they hired some PR agency to make a presentation, and PR agency was making a presentation as if they were making it to some CEO. And the water presentation started with some lady sort of putting her on her head a pot and walking. And Rajiv Gandhi was very upset. He said, I don't need a PR presentation. I want something concrete. What are you going to do? Don't tell me all this fancy stuff. I'm not into your PR promotion. And he got so mad, let me tell you, that in the meeting, for the first time, Prime Minister fired 2 secretaries, IAS officers. Secretary Water and Secretary Agriculture. And it was a chaos because no one had ever heard of high level government secretaries fired in a meeting like that. So that evening, I got a call from his personal secretary, Sarla Agrewal. She was the principal secretary, I believe. And she said, Mr. Pitroda, just come right now. We have a problem. So I went that night about 7 o'clock. I'm telling you these stories because it tells you about his style of management. I went there and she said, look, we have a serious problem. Never in the history Prime Minister has fired IAS officers like this. It's a, you know, sort of big concern to all the IAS officers. It'll get demoralized, blah, 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 and all this standard complaint from IAS, uh, senior officer. Do something. I said, what can I do? She said, no, you meet with them and I will tell PM that Sam Pitroda has intervened and he's going to, fix it. And please don't fire them. Let them give him a chance and see what Sam can do. So I said, fine. So Jairam Ramesh, who used to be sort of my chief of staff, and I said, Jairam, let's call these two meetings. We called a meeting on water. We called a meeting on oil seeds. Talked to both the secretaries. They were good, but they were not in tune with the style of modern management and new leader. So we worked with them and sort of, in next 48 hours, did a better presentation, more substance to it. Like I started asking water people how much water cat drinks and dog drinks and camel drinks, and they were puzzled. I said, this is the kind of stuff Rajiv Gandhi would like to know. Okay, if you are a water mission expert, we need to know what is the requirement for water. How much for bathing, how much for cooking, how much for drinking, how much for agriculture, how much for animals. Okay, you need to quantify something. You need to have a plan. Water testing lab, geohydrological surveys, okay, satellite imagery. And these things were never thought properly. I said, how could you not have water testing labs in every district? We didn't have any of that. Believe me, it was a shock to the system. Saying, what are these people talking? So there were stories in India today where I'm sort of flying in from space with, transparencies to show it to Prime Minister, all kinds of stuff. Okay. Those were the days there were stories on every news magazine's front covers about what we were going to do in the future. I have about, right in my office, 10 front cover stories with my picture on it. And the idea was to change the leadership style, demand performance to get performance. He was very sensible. He compromised. When we gave him a new presentation after 48 or 72 hours, he said, fine. They don't need to be fired. Said, Sam, you work with them. And that's how these two became part of technology missions. And he was ready to compromise. He was willing to listen. He was ready to correct his mistakes. He had no hang-ups. He was not authoritarian. He was tough. But he was a leader who wanted consensus. He spent a lot of time in trying to build consensus. And sometimes it is difficult to build consensus. I can give you hundreds of examples like this to really talk about his leadership. And I'm just going to randomly give few examples. Once Italian Prime Minister was visiting India. So whenever prime ministers and heads of states visited, we would have dinner with them. So my wife and I would get invited to few, and we were invited. And as prime minister, an Italian prime minister enter, everybody lines up and you shake hands and all that stuff, formal. And right after that, it turned out that all Indians are talking to themselves and all Italians are talking to themselves in a corner. Because in Indian guys, you had guys with turban, you had, old timers, and the security guy comes to me with a little note and says, PM has a message for you. And this is, in the dinner cocktail time. There are about maybe 30, 40 of us. I said, what is it? He said, PM wants you to break the Italian and Indian circles. I mean, look at this. This is a guy, prime minister of a country, sitting in a corner with other prime minister and watching this and realizes that Indians are not talking to Italians and Italians are not talking to Indians. So he says, Sam, go break it. So I realized that. I go to Italian group of about 10 men, talking. And I just introduced, I said, Sam Pitroda, blah, 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 delighted. And then I said, oh, let's meet our Indian colleagues. And I take the whole group to about 10 Indians. And then we start talking. And there is some interaction. This was the young prime minister who thought at one level on micro details and the other level on macro details. Okay. Many times he will call me at 10, 10:30 at night, and Anu and I will go and we'll have long sessions on issues. He wanted to meet with scientists. He had a very interesting science advisory council with distinguished people, including Dr. CNR Rao and Maselkar and Ashok Ganguly and Professor Tandon and, amazing group of people. They were really gems of science and technology. And he worked with all of them and he learned and he listened and he empowered them. You know, his style was very open, very transparent. Once I told him that you should meet with intellectual more regularly. You haven't met them yet. He said, okay, I want to meet. But then it turned out that people in his office didn't want him to interact with outsiders. So the meeting that I wanted to arrange got blocked by Gopi Arora for almost 3 months. Prime Minister has no time, which is always true. Finally, I pushed hard and arranged a meeting with about 20, 15, 20 intellectuals like Rajni Kothari, Dhirubhai Seth, um, there was Fernandez, uh, editor of Times of India, and Bhavani Sandas Gupta. There are some great people. These were the top of the top, Ashish Nandis of the world. And his office gave us only half an hour. So I got all these people, go to his office, he and I sit there and he starts listening. And he got so interested, he spent 2.5 hours, cancel all other meeting. And his bureaucracy was very upset that Sam is taking him to wrong direction, listening to all these outsiders. And Rajiv said, Sam, let's do this regularly once every 3 months. He said, I really enjoyed it. It opened my mind. What it meant is he was open to new ideas. He needed intellectual interactions. And people in that meeting who had some wrong notions of Rajiv Gandhi came out completely changed and said, Sam, we are so happy that you organized this meeting because now we know who Rajiv Gandhi is. He's not what people are telling us. He's a different human being. He's a very decent leader. So, one thing you will find is that there is a public perception and there is reality. And it's totally different. What you hear in press, what people propagate is very different from what the reality is. And that kind of leadership, which is open to ideas, interested in 21st century, trying to computerize. Then by then the laptop started coming in. He had one. He had a little program. There was no, window in those days. There was a little program called Framework. I worked with him a little bit. I didn't have a laptop at that point in time of my own because it was too expensive and I didn't want to spend government money. But we had a friend, Dr. Garola, who was a young man that at NIC who helped Rajiv on his computerization. And then the first major project he and I talked about was railway reservation computerization. I worked with Madhav Sindhya, and then we set up CDAC and all kinds of things. I remember being with him and get a call from uh, Ronald Reagan saying India will not get supercomputer because India will perhaps misuse that for nuclear research. And Rajiv was very upset. He said, "What is this? They are blocking us. What do we do?" I said, "We'll have to develop our own." And he said, "How?" I said, "I don't know, but it'll take 3 years and so much money." He said, "Okay, go do it." And immediately the Science Advisory Council got in play, and they were all top of the top people. And we set up a center in Pune, and we developed parallel processing supercomputer of India called Param in 3 years. So he also built institutions after institutions, whether it was, and I'm just talking about in my side, okay, and he did that in many other areas. Panchayat Raj was a classical example that he worked with Manishankar Iyer. Um, we build institutions like CDOT and CDAC and TIFAC, you know, Technology Information Forecast and Assessment Council. And he also worried about education, higher education, a great deal. His vision of India was to make sure that by 21st century, we enter in an era with dignity and scientific manpower. So I entered the system with the idea that telecom and IT will change the face of India. And he supported that to the hilt. He would come to all the events. We would plan on telecom, big events, functions. He was at all the inauguration of literacy mission, um, 3 year celebration of CDOT. He would even, I would call him and say, look, we need you to see this demo because all these young engineers will get excited. So he will do that. Okay. While he was worrying about political firefighting, he wanted to make sure that the technology remained the main focus of his modernization. So the leadership was very clear and visible. Long hours, hands on experience, willingness to learn. I may have given this example to you earlier, but once I went to his office at home and I couldn't find him. I'm in his room and I can't find Rajiv. So I'm looking around and he's in the corner trying to change a bulb. He's the Prime Minister of India. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, this bulb was flickering and it was bothering me, so I thought I'd change." And then he's on the little ladder. Okay. And he said, "Get me that screwdriver." And I give him that and he fixes. And then we sit down and talk. Okay. So on one hand, he's a hands-on. On the other hand, when he goes to country like US, he's a leader of a nation of uh, 700 million people, and he's in front of press at National Press Club, and the kinds of reception he gets is mind-boggling. I met him with Gorbachev at his house. We spent an hour. I met him, with President of Vietnam, and you name it. I mean, in those days, it was like being on drug all the time. You are high. You are so high that you can't even sleep. Okay. And we will call meeting at some odd time, and people will show up because we were in power and everyone was in hurry. And that really created a lot of internal enemies within his own inner circles, because they saw that technology is getting too much attention, politics is not getting enough attention. They saw that he's talking about 21st century, but we have problems to fix in this century. Of course you have. So there were conflicts always. Okay. The key was conflict resolution. How do you resolve those conflicts? And people saw it very differently. Okay. Rather than saying, let's hang with the young prime minister, work with him, give him space, give him support, everybody became too personal and full of their ego, saying he didn't listen to my idea. I had no issue if he didn't listen to my idea. And it's okay. He doesn't have to listen to all my ideas. It's okay for him, because the idea is we are working for him. Let him make the decision. And what you think is right may not be right from his perspective. Just because you have a difference in idea, a difference in perception, you can't quit and say, oh, I'm going to fight and he doesn't follow me. He doesn't listen to me. That's what started happening in his leadership style. He remained firm, but his people became too greedy in many ways. Okay. And things started falling apart. And things got into more personality conflicts than purpose conflicts. And this is always a danger. Okay. Sometimes there is purpose conflict as well. Okay. I went with him to Amethi several times, and we drove around and we met with poor people. And I remember once his hand was full of blood, and he said, look, I said, what happened? He said, I've been shaking hand all day with all the farmers. Okay. So the stories are unbelievable. You cannot even write these stories. Okay. But the leadership style was absolutely genuine. People can write books if you knew him. But when you see from a distance, that leadership style looks very different. Because you read in the paper what decision was made, what was not made. Not that everything we did was right, not that every decision we made was right, but it was based on information at that point in time on the event. Now, every decision has a time element, has emotional element, has information element, has impact element. And these are complex decisions affecting millions and millions of people. And sometimes there is no right decision, but there is a decision that you have to make it right. So I'm one of those who firmly believe in doing right things versus doing things right. Even in my early age in America, I said, I'm going to focus on doing the right things. Like the first job I got was in defense in America for $1,100 a month. And I said, I will not take a job in defense. So finally, I ended up taking a job for $500 a month in a television company because I was very clear I will do the right things and not do things right. And Rajiv also believed in it. I can go on and on, but I think our time is short. So maybe we can spend next 15 minutes listening to you and your input and your advice. Uh, but I can talk on Rajiv's leadership for a while, and there are many others like me, okay, at least few others who are still alive. A lot of the people who worked with you very closely, Mr. Deshmukh, um, Gopi Arora, they all died. Uh, Montek worked with us. He was his junior level secretary at that time. Then he became joint secretary in PM's office. So Montek is still active. Jairam worked with me, so he got to know Rajiv a little bit. And other people, you know, don't exist anymore because we are all in our 80s, at least not Jairam, but, Montek and I and others. Maybe I was a little senior. I was 2 years older than Rajiv. Uh, I'm 83 and he would have been 80 this year. Yeah, so 3 years older. Anyway, I have lots of sweet memories. I can get, you know, carried away at times. Pardon me for, you know, talking some personal that maybe was not needed. Uh, but with this, I want to open up for a broader conversation. Thank you, Priyambada. Thank you, Upendra.
Thank you, sir. That was quite enriching, and we got to know more, a different side of our Prime Minister, Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji. So there are many positive comments. I'll just take questions first, and then I'll just brief through the comments what people are saying about our ex Prime Minister and you in building India's IT and in general, like building a foundation for India to leap towards future. So
It's
there is a
unfortunate, Priyambada, that people don't know. People have no idea.
exactly.
They don't know what you did. They don't know, not you, meaning I,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what other people did. And there are so many people who have given their life for independence, for building India, for building dams, for building railways. I mean, just history goes on and on and on. It takes long time and lots of people sacrifice to build a nation. People think it just happened overnight and they bitch and complain, this is not working, that is not working. But think about where your grandfather was, think about where your father is, and think about the privilege you have today. And what it took to get there is something everyone should understand. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. When they say that what we have done in 60 years, like especially Congress Party, they actually humiliate their own forefathers who have struggled and who have helped to build India because they are also a part of this country, even if with a different ideology. But going forward from this, so there's a question from Rakesh. Uh,
Samaya.
Somaya, yeah. So he's asking today's AI-driven world, what role do you see India playing in shaping global digital policies? And also, how can we ensure that technology empowers every citizen rather than widening inequality?
I think India has a moral responsibility to use AI to solve India's problems and not problem of Citibank or problem of some multinational. Their problems are more about productivity, efficiency, cost reduction, market share. Our problems are more about food security, environment, education, health, nutrition. So I think how do we use AI to solve larger challenges today more so than about How do you use AI to get better share of the market? That's a fundamental difference I see. For example, a big difference I would see is how do we build our defense system of the future with AI and robotics and drones and all that? And how do we transform our agriculture so productivity goes up substantially, nutrition improves, food security is assured. So it depends on what you prioritize. Yeah. Thank you.
So there are few positive comments. I'll just read them out because there are loads of them. So Zuhair is thanking you for your anecdotes during the show and insights. Uh, then there is so Yashwant Dulera is from India. He's obviously a Congress person.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so there is a question from Anurag.
Uh-huh.
He's asking, how do you think, again, like an AI question, how do you think we can use AI to empower people, especially primary education?
I would like to use AI to make everybody a self learner. I don't know how to do it yet. Okay. But I want to make sure that the kid who is young becomes a self learner. Let me give you a personal example. I have my daughter visiting right now from California. She has a young daughter, 4 year old, Naila. And we were going to some relatives yesterday to meet. And again, we are going to go today to meet my older brother. And this old girl, sitting in the back seat is asking questions. And I am completely amazed. She's asking her mom, who is a film producer in Hollywood, saying, Mom, in animation movie, I see this thing between voice and picture. How do they make that happen? So mom is trying to explain to her. Then she goes and says, but what about in the non-animation movie? And she goes on and on. And I said, where is all this coming from?
Hmm.
Curiosity. She was so curious about, at that age, 4 year old talking about animation, 4 year old is trying to figure out how it is happening. I don't think we build curiosity enough. Okay. So if I can use AI to generate enough curiosity in people, saying why Earth moves the way it moves, what is the magnetic field of the Earth? Where does it come from? Where is the magnetic field? Is there a magnetic field here? There? What are the forces of the world? You know, that curiosity is not there. A lot of these young people fight on the street and all that. Rather than doing that, if they were just curious about how the galaxy works. Okay. So I think AI to me is a great tool to really explore new frontiers. Just sit in front of AI tool and just go crazy about everything, you know, art, culture, music, science, physics, telecom, IT, humanities, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, you know, dinosaurs. That is the power of AI to in education to make kids curious and self-learner, saying I don't need teacher to teach me ultimately. But for that, you need to be able to read properly, write properly, comprehend. These are all important issues. Okay.
Thank you, sir. There is a comment from Vani. She's saying, let's work hard to make Rajiv sir's dream true in practical and present and in future with new ideas. So adding to this,
Thank you,
ho-
Vani.
how would you think we should, carry forward this legacy in our little bit way?
You got to take charge of your environment. You got to change your family's thinking. You got to change your friends' thinking. You got to change your neighborhood thinking. You got to clean your environment. You got to teach young people. You got to, how many of us offer, you know, 1 hour for teaching others every week? No, we don't do that. I had a friend, Andres Bande, who was president of Ameritech, Ameritech International here in Chicago. And every day he would spend 2 hours in the hospital serving older people. He was a president, okay? But his routine was 2 hours every day he has to give it to social work. He'll go to local hospitals and take a tray and serve people and, clean them up. And I mean, look at the man, okay? How many of us do that? We don't. And then we want to change the world. How can you change the world? You got to change yourself first.
Absolutely, sir. We can always try to contribute a little bit from our side
I mean,
towards
change,
society.
teach children in your backyard, okay? Play with them 2 hours a week. Teach them something. Okay, then you make a contribution. No, I would rather be on social media and watch Bollywood movies and then say I want to change India. Come on, give me a break. You know,
So MJ Sheikh is resonating what every one of us feels, that you have developed India to a great extent, and we will remain grateful to you. So this
but
is
believe
what.
me, there are millions like me, and we are here because of contribution of many, many good people. Okay, thank you, Sheikh. We also need a little bit of pumping up once in a while. We are just normal human beings. Thank you.
So, but how do you think we'll be able to, get get back to the IT, like what India was when in during Rajiv Ji's time? Now we have completely, like now we are compared to Bangladesh and sorts of that. So, how do you think India is going to, throw this uh, cover of religion, all this narrow mindedness?
It's up to us. It is up to us. If enough of us change, work on change, it will happen. If enough of us just talk about it and don't do anything, it won't happen. Okay,
Absolutely. There is a big, long comment from Kiran Kumar. I'll just read it out.
please
Sorry, 1 second.
tell me.
Yeah, so yeah, so he is like grateful to all your contributions, and according to Mr. Kiran Kumar, his goals and ambitions are because of both of you, because you shaped. I think most of the IT and the technology, those who have now like gone to reach greater heights, they always think that it's because of you, because of Rajiv Ji's
But
IT
thank you,
revolution.
Kumar. It is also because of young people like you who got the work done. Okay, you all had to implement. And if there aren't young people like you all, we won't be where we are, Kiran. I appreciate all that you all do, and I wish there were more people like you in the country. And our job is to not only create more Rajiv Gandhi and Sam Pitroda, but also more Kiran Kumars. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So before we end, like last, like a question, your message to the youth of this country, how to, take India forward without being grappled in this.
I always say, Priyambada, that the key is to make yourself better. Key is to build a self that is respectful. So I respect you for who you are, what you are, irrespective of your religion. I never, worry about whether this Muslim or Christian or, Dalit. I just hold them in my arm and I love them and I kiss them and I eat their food and I enjoy what they do. And they are my brothers and sisters. Okay. I have no issues. They are my children in many ways, you know. So you got to broaden your horizon about humanity. And don't fight. Learn conflict resolution. There are always conflicts in life. Okay? So building self that is dignified, moral, ethical, disciplined, creative, analytical, uh, balanced, okay, selfless. All of these are important attributes, and you got to develop those. Then you help everybody. Okay. If you have not helped yourself, how can you help everybody else? If you're a crook, if you're a cheat, if you're a liar, if you're, you know, one who stabs in the back, how can you make a contribution? You can't make a contribution. So build a good self and you'll make a contribution. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, just last question. I just got
No problem.
this one from Kisley is asking what changes are required for Indian bureaucracy. Do you think the working style should change with the red tapeism and the IS
No, I
officers?
think I find that the bureaucracy in India is too focused on their personal promotions and not on the task at hand. They're more interested in their position. I'm just let me give you an example. A couple of days ago, some guy called me and he said, I'm here uh, because my daughter is going to go to an undergraduate, or my son is going to go to an undergraduate program for 4 years. He's an IAS officer someplace. Okay. Now you wonder, why would somebody send his young kid, IAS officer, to America for undergraduate? I mean, look at the amount of expense required. Okay. I can't think of spending that kind of money to get undergraduate degree in America. I'd rather get an undergraduate degree in India. The question is, how did that money come from? Where did it come from? But nobody is interested in asking that. If you analyze the children of the IAS officers who went to college in America, you will know the facts. Everybody had their kids going to college abroad. How is that possible? But that's their goal. Okay, their goal is not really what you do for India at times. Okay, so it depends. Sorry to say this. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for all these
Thanks.
insights and anecdotes.
Sorry, I gotta
And
go.
yeah, we'll meet next time.
I have
Thank you.
another one.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, today is a busy day.
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks, Vinod.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah.